Okay, let's talk about speed graphs and value graphs. These are a much easier way to get really cool motion out of your animations. So I'm going to create, I'm essentially going to walk us through the homework, my example that I did. I'm going to do that again. It probably won't be the exact same because I don't have it as a reference, but I'll do another version from scratch, and then we'll kind of talk about these speed and value graphs while we're doing it. So if I create a new solid, I'm going to make a background. I'm going to give it my standard ramp. I want it to be, let's do like a green one, a light green, green. I've done this a million times, so you should be pretty familiar with this at this point. Oops, grab my ramp. I'm going to center this up this time instead of being at the top. Okay, so we got our green background. I'm going to lock that off because I don't want to be able to click it. Okay, I'm going to create a new shape layer. I want that shape layer to be an ellipse, so I'll add an ellipse. I will add a fill, and I want to make that a white circle. I want the size to be 500, not 5,000. 500, please. Thank you. I just want to do a simple scale animation. So I'm going to create a keyframe at 0 seconds. I'll create another keyframe at 100% scale at 1 second. And at 2 seconds, I will create a 0% keyframe. So here is the linear movement of this circle. I will loop this a little bit so you can see it. So every piece of time that goes by, it's growing and shrinking at the same rate the whole time. Before, when we've played with keyframes, we've either seen these linear keyframes or we've hit F9 to easy ease them, right? Which eases that movement. So now there's a little bit of ease at the beginning and ends of the tops and bottom of this animation, essentially. It's slowing, it starts slow at the bottom. When it gets about halfway is when it's at its fastest, and it starts slowing down to get to the next keyframe. And then it's slow here, speeds up to about here, and then starts slowing down in anticipation of this keyframe. To see that, if we go back, if I control left click these, we're going to go back to linear keyframes. To see this in graph form, we can click this graph editor right here. So if I click that, we see this. This is essentially our percentage growth. If I click down here, we can choose what graph we're looking at. So this is a speed graph here. And we can either do speed or value. We're going to do both for the homework. So mine defaults to speed because that's what I prefer to look at. We can also look at value. So since we're on linear keyframes here, the speed is constant throughout. It never changes. It grows the same speed. Right when it hits this, it starts shrinking at the same speed, right? If you remember, this is what it looks like, just constant. If I switch these and easy ease these keyframes, let's see what happens to this graph now. I have to make sure I click on scale. I have to have scale selected for that to show up in the graph. So here's my new graph for easy easing. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so we can see this a little bit better. Here's my new graph. Again, you have to think we're looking at speed. So our speed is starting at 0. And think of this as the speed or rate of change, not necessarily the speed of how fast something's moving, since technically it's not moving, it's just scaling up. So it's starting at 0, and it's slowly getting faster and faster and faster. And its peak speed is about right here. And if we go back and look at our keyframe, this is the halfway point between the first keyframe and second keyframe. This is where it has to start slowing down in anticipation of our next keyframe right here. So if we go back and look, our keyframes are shown here in yellow. I'm going to zoom out so we can see this. So we're halfway through. We see our next keyframe here, so it's like, oh, gotta start slowing down, and it stops. So we're back at 0. This is 0. Now, once it sees that we gotta shrink back down, we start going into our negative speed, our negative value change. So it's faster and faster. Halfway through, this is the fastest negative change at around negative 150, and then it starts slowing down back to 0. Well, the cool thing about this is we can modify this graph, right? When you click on these little points, we get these Bezier curves, these lines. I'm not exactly sure what they're called. I just call them Bezier modifiers. And we can adjust, we can click click these guys, drag them, and affect this curve, right? We can even change our values of our keyframes if we wanted to. We can move things forward and back in time if we want to. And when we do that, like if I bring this guy over here, it changes my keyframe. Like where I'm physically moving this keyframe, it's the same thing. So one thing I always do is easy ease for me, for my eye at this point, doesn't really show it's not enough easement, if that's even a word, on the tops and bottoms of these animations and moves. So what I like to do is really drag these guys, these left and right modifiers. I have all of my keyframes selected, so when I click on one, it drags them both. I like to drag these to really, it's slower for longer. Its peak speed is not as long, and it goes right back into slowing down a lot faster, right? So if we look at that, and what that does, this is what it does now. It's a little more cartoonish. It lends itself a little bit better for the motion graphic style. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you these side by side. So here's the one graph that we edited. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to name this Super Ease. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to name this one Easy Ease. And I'm just going to grab these keyframes. I'm going to reset them back to linear keyframes, and then just do F9 again. That'll reset them. Okay, so here's our regular Easy Ease keyframes. Here's our modified one. I think if we double click this, we can see them both. So now we're looking at both. This line is Easy Ease. This line is our modified Easy Ease, where we squish those two sides. So let's grab one of these. Easy Ease is going to be on the left. Super Easy Ease is going to be on the right. Let's look at these side by side. You can see the difference. It's kind of subtle, but when you have a lot of motion and a lot of elements that are doing this type of motion, it starts to look really cool. So the goal for this homework is to modify a few of these curves to get some cool movement out of a movement like that, or some cool animation out of a movement like this. And I want to draw the graph on the left side. So let's delete our Easy Ease. We'll keep our Super Ease for now. You know, I might as well just go and edit this in a cool way that I like. So I'm going to reset these back. I'm going to go out of my graph editor, reset these to just regular Easy Ease keyframes, and go back in. And we have to draw one that's a value graph and one that's speed graph. Looking at value graph really quick, since we didn't really do that, focused on scale. When we scale, if we go back to our starting point at 0, you can see 0 down here, 100% up here. So this is just seeing the percentage change. Right, so as I go across, this shows 100% when it's at 100%, 0% at 0. It's a little bit easier to see. So if I grab, we'll just start with my value, and we'll draw this first. So my graph here, if I drag these curves way over, let's see what happens. So I stay at 100% for a lot longer before it quickly goes down to 0. Let's see what that looks like. Pretty cool. What if we make this even more dramatic and drag these modifiers closer? Okay, cool. Let's do that. I like that. That's kind of neat. So this is one of the curves I'll need to draw when we're visualizing it. So let's make a grid. We'll do a new solid. We'll search grid effect. We'll throw this generate grid on it. And I'm going to scale this down. Bring it over here. This will be my grid. I'm going to shift this guy over a little bit so we have room. This is my value graph, so I'm going to name this value graph. Okay, looking studly. And I want to draw this out. So let's look. This is, if I click on the scale of my Super Ease, this is what I want to draw, right? So I'll grab my pen tool, and we want to draw that using this graph. We want to kind of simulate it here. So it's going to be a sharp upturn and then a nice long movement here. So I'm going to do a keyframe here, or not a keyframe. I'm going to use my pen tool, draw one mark here, We'll do one like here and one down here, and then I'm gonna edit this after. Okay, so we've got our points. Now I'm gonna, if you're not 100% sure on how this pen tool works, I put up a tutorial on using it specifically. That's kind of nice. So please feel free to use that. But I'm just gonna, I have my 3 points here at the top and at the bottom down here again. I'm using these to simulate how this line gets drawn out. So that's pretty close if we look at it over here. It's pretty close. I'm going to grab, oops, I drew that on here, didn't I? Shape 1, I think yep, shape 1 I drew on it. I'm going to do a new shape layer. I'm going to copy that onto here. So I just copied this shape over to here, so I have a separate one, and I need to fill that, or stroke it, I'm sorry. Unless it decides, okay, it like moved it way over. And it's giant now, so that's nice. Okay, we'll try to line this back up so I don't have to completely redo it. Looks good. I'm gonna move this up. It's right in the middle. I'll actually bring all of these down just a little bit. Center this up. Center that up. Bring up my title safe so I can center this. Just want it centered with this middle line. Okay, looks good. Okay, I need to get rid of the fill that's on here because I just want it to be the line. I want a stroke. So delete the fill. There's my line, and I want to animate this. So let's do a trim path. And we will animate the end here. I'm gonna get out of my graph editor so I can see these. I'm gonna go ahead 20 keyframes, set my end, go back to the beginning, bring my end all the way back. Easy as that. If we wanted to get crazy, we can grab these two, go to my graph editor, grab these 2 points, and let's increase that easy ease a little bit. All right? Why not? Now that we can, let's see what that looks like. That's pretty dramatic. Let's slow that down. That's even pretty crazy still. Probably too much. Let's go back. Not so much. Okay. Got it. Okay, so now we have our, what are we working on? This is our, are we in value graph right now? Is that what we're in? Yeah, so we need, what do we need here? We need this to animate in with a track mat above our value graph. We want that to be right above this graph, which is fine. And we'll set this to track mat inverted. Nope, track mat alpha. There we go. And we will do a quick 20 frame. Again, hitting shift, holding it, and page down twice will move you 20 frames. That's 10 frame increments. We'll do a quick animate up on this. Now that we're getting used to how this graph editor works, I'll just grab these 2 keyframes, and I'll bring that up as well. Where is this? It's being kind of funky. I'm gonna look at the speed graph. I like looking at the speed graph. It helps me. Drag these in a little bit, increase that easy ease. Okay, I need to start enabling motion blur here. Motion blur, motion blur. Okay. So we have our movement on our circle 1, right? I want to copy this to have it do it a few times so it repeats itself. So I'm going to grab these 2 from 0 to 100 and copy that after it goes to 0. So we'll go to 2 seconds, we'll copy that, we'll go to 5 seconds, we'll copy it again. So now we have just 0, 100, 0, 100, 0, 100. That's going to copy all of these value graph looks as well. Except there's a pause here, so we probably missed one. Yeah, looks like we have too many. So I'm going to slide these over. How are we doing there? 1, 2. We need another 0 here. We'll copy that, paste it right there. Okay, so now we have our first animation. Okay, now we need that to animate off. So once this finishes here, I'll send this back down. I'll hide my value graph. I'll go 20 frames, bring this back down. I think if we look at the value graph, it should, I think it'll give us those same parameters. I'm not sure. Let's take a look. 2, 3. Okay, that'll hide. I want this to wipe off, so I'm going to hit U, and I'm just going to inverse these. I'm going to copy and paste them, and then just flip them. So I'm going to bring this to the beginning, and then bring them to where I want them to end here. So I want this to end at the same time. So I'm going to line up the end of my circle animation with the end of this wiping off. Actually, now that I did that, I don't want it to go back like that. So let's not do that. Let's animate the start to have the start follow along with it. So I want my start to animate from 0 to 100. If you look at this while I do it, I want this to go this way. Okay, I'll easy ease that. Go in and look at these keyframes. Looks like these are already drug over, which is nice. Okay, so now I've got the first one done. Okay, so this comes on, looks good. Wipes off. I want my value graph to come down with that as well. So when this ends, I want this all to disappear at the same time. So this should all go away together. There we go. Okay, so here's my 3 animations so far. If you guys look how simple this is, these keyframes are all appropriately spaced. There's not a gazillion keyframes here. It's all very simple. A lot of times I'll notice you guys are adding like way too many keyframes that you don't need. You're kind of trying to do micro movements, which you don't need. It's much easier if you set larger distances, use longer distances of time between keyframes, and let the computer do the work, you know. Okay, so now we got a value graph, we need a speed graph now. So I'm going to copy my value graph here, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm going to push it over in time to when this one ends, which is about here. And I'm going to name this speed graph. Speed graph. And I'm going to, let's see, we'll have to start from scratch on this next part. Actually, let's just copy my circle, duplicate my circle, bring it up, move it over. And I just need to edit this movement again. So I'm going to delete these guys. I want to look at these 3. Go into my graph editor. And we need to come up with a cooler way to do this. What if we get like really weird? What is this going to look like? I guess we got to be in speed, right? Yeah, we got to go to speed. I'm going to undo what I just did. I'm going to reset these back to regular, go back to easy ease. So now it's the default ones. And we need to be in speed graph. Okay. So here's our speed graph. Let's play with these and get really weird. I think with these we can't, if you see like, I can't, we can start fast on a movement and stuff. So it starts really quick. When we were in value, I was able to grab these and bring them up and down and stuff like that. Well, we can't do that with speed. That's just not how speed works. So if we move these, you know, we could have something end at 0 once it reaches its top here, and then go from 0 to full speed. You know, this is a linear movement up back to full speed and go straight down, you know. So if we do that, I need to adjust my render spot here so you can see what this is. So we stop here and we quickly start moving back down. Let me see if I can make this even bigger. It doesn't hold it for very long is a problem. Let me hold this, let me string this out so we can really see this. So it gets kind of funky. We're getting too funky too fast. So let's reset this back so we're not getting too crazy. Let's bring this back down. I'm gonna reset this guy again. We'll draw a little more basic one that actually looks good. Okay, so I want this to start off fast. So I want this guy to be over here. I want it to go from 0 to fast pretty darn quick. So I'm gonna smush these guys over. So we're starting really quick out of the gate. Actually, that's similar to what my other one did. Let's do the opposite. Let's start off like really slowly. Let's have it end really slowly too. So let's see what that looks like. I think we can even get crazier. I'm gonna bring these even closer. So this high point is really, really fast. What does that look like? Okay, not bad. Okay, so here's our new value graph. Very different from our first one. Now we need to draw this. So I'm going to grab my pen tool. Unfortunately, we can't look at this while we do it. We have to have this selected. And we have to deselect it to start drawing. So let's just remember. So we want a nice gradual curve up. It's like it's almost, essentially it's like a, I don't even know what you call that. It's like an exponential curve. So we'll go straight up. Right when we get to the middle, it's almost straight up, and then go straight down pretty much. So if we start here, drag this guy over. This is our middle point. So we're going to go straight up from here. Actually, it's like just the side of this. Back down to here. And then I'm going to go back and look at this, and then it slowly curves back up. This needs to start up higher, but I'll change that. And it ends on the same plane. Okay, so I think that plane's going to be here. Sure, why not? Okay, so I need to move this guy. This guy needs to come up. Nope, not all of you. Just you, please. Just you. Okay, and this needs to be in a gradual curve. This guy needs to be like pointed down pretty much. Same with this guy. This needs to be pointed down. This needs to be gradual. So that's pretty close. If I click out of this, you'll be able to see a little bit better. That's pretty close to where this guy is. I can bring my top and bottom points up higher, I think. So if we bring this guy up here, bring this guy down here, that's a better graphical representation. Pretty close. Not bad. Okay. I'm happy if you're happy. Everyone's happy. So we want this to draw on. I will copy from my previous shape my start and end points. I'm just going to paste it onto here so we don't have to do it twice. I always try to refrain from doing anything the same exact thing twice. So I'll paste those. I just copied these. I'm just going to paste them right on. So here's my start and end point. This is where everything begins. I'll zoom out here. I want to look at the second circle, and I need to copy and paste this to happen 3 times. So this is our first. I need to copy these last 2 actually. So 0, 100, 0. We're going to copy 100, 0 on the end of it. So we'll go 100, 0, 100, 0. And that should line up with the ends of where these guys are. Pretty close. Oops. I'll drag these and line these ends up as well. Okay, so what does that look like? There you go. Good stuff. I'll add motion blur to my remaining things that I missed here. And let's look at the whole homework as a whole, see how we did. Let it render out here. Again, if drawing these graphs didn't make sense, please go watch a pen tool tutorial. It will help considerably. Okay, looks good. I like it a lot. Good job, guys. I'll bring this up full screen so we can see this while we're talking. Next week, we'll get into more advanced stuff with this. Honestly, the advanced stuff's hard because it's all determined on what exactly you're going for. It helps to know exactly the look you want going into it. It's not really one of those things where it's like you can learn a lot by just fiddling with it, which I guess to some extent you can. I mean, like you can see exactly how this graph worked, but really what I use this for is to just really overemphasize that easy ease type movement. So hope this helped. Take a peek a few times, go back and rewatch stuff if you need help on anything. Just quick notes, you know, when you have to redo something, like we had a value graph text up here and a speed graph, I didn't make that twice. I just copied, pasted, and renamed it, and then shifted it back in time. That's really the style of stuff that I want to see you guys doing now to save time. Using After Effects in a professional environment, the faster you can do these things, the more efficient you are, the more money you'll make, etc., etc., etc. So I really want to start emphasizing that from here on out. So have fun, good luck. Let me know if you guys need any help, and I will see you next week.